Hello, everyone. This is the Ophthalmology Business Podcast, where we help you develop your ideal practice with help of other doctors and experts. The topics we cover include marketing, management, leadership, recruitment, HR, mindsets, and more. I am Naren Arulrajah, the founder and one of the co-hosts of this podcast. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to join the Ophthalmology Business Academy, www.obacademy.org. The membership is on us, and it's our gift to you. Today, I'm excited to talk to Tony Burns. Tony Burns is the principal founder and chief strategy officer of IOR Partners. And the topic we're going to be talking about today is Office-Based Cataract Surgery. Hey, Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Before we jump in, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Tony, as well as your firm, IOR Partners?
Sure. Thanks. So again, my name is Tony Burns. I'm the founder and the chief strategy officer of IOR. My background primarily is in ambulatory surgery center development. I started doing ASCs back in the late 80s and early 90s. Primarily went into the ASC development because I started in a hospital system and quickly recognized that physicians had a greater level of control over their patient care if they could start and develop a surgery center. It would just give them better access to how they were able to treat patients. Kind of by a fluke, I was helping a friend who had some issues with finding surgical time in Central California, and we did our first office-based ophthalmic suite in 2005 in Central California. Since then, fast forward a few years later, 2010, we started developing what was called a vision correction suite with Star Surgical, specifically to implant ICLs so they didn't have to take their refractive patients over to the surgery center. That developed into doing refractive lens exchange in the office. And then eventually what ended up being IOR, where we are now doing certainly ICLs, RLEs, cataract surgery, retina, glaucoma, pretty much all modalities of ophthalmology are now being performed in the office. So that's kind of a quick background of the history.
Perfect. Let's jump in. So let's start by talking about the transition to office-based surgery in ophthalmology. Why do you think it's happening, and why do you think it's the future of this field?
You know, that's a great question. I think that's just a natural progression. We saw great success when we first started doing outpatient ophthalmic surgery, and that would have been in the late 70s. It started where we were discharging patients from the hospital after the same day surgery. One of the other partners in IOR Partners is a physician named Dan Dury, and he was treating his patients that way. He was one of the first guys in the Midwest to discharge his patients same day. That transitioned to outpatient surgery in a freestanding facility, which is an ambulatory surgery center. That transition was a huge step, and as I stated earlier, it gave the physician a lot greater control on how he could treat his patients. And then, office space is just the next step. I think the technology, the surgical techniques, the way that we apply anesthesia have just taken it to the level that it's a procedure that should be performed in the office. There is a pretty big misconception that when we say we're doing office-based surgery, that we're doing surgery in some kind of substandard broom closet or something of that nature. And that's not true at all. What we are actually doing is installing an operatory within the physician's office that meets the same standards that are required for ophthalmic surgery in an ASC. So we're really just transferring the site of service to the physician's office, which of course brings all kinds of measure of efficiency and convenience for the patient. The experience is a lot better. And so far, we've done just north of 50,000 procedures in the office. We have data, hard data on about 30,000 of those procedures. Our outcomes are great. And the experience is just superior for both the physician and the patient. So I think it's just the next step in the process.
Thank you. CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, reviewed office-based surgery reimbursements and did not include it in the 2023 final rule. Do you know why it did not go through?
Sure. So that's kind of the tail end in the latest chapter of a much longer story. CMS originally looked at these procedures. They did a request for information in 2015, following a large study that was done by Kaiser Permanente on office-based surgery. At the time, the public opinion on that, when it went out for comment, it was just too new. There wasn't enough safety data. So it was tabled for 4 years. We actually brought it up again in 2020, and had at that point we submitted about 12,000 procedures, safety data, outcomes data on about 12,000 procedures. We got into fairly in-depth conversations with them. Thought it was going to go into the 2020 proposed rule, and then COVID struck and pretty much stopped all initiatives, except for what was very pertinent at the time. So we resubmitted the proposal in 2022, made it into the 2023 proposed rule, and received comment. We overwhelmingly received positive comment in the public comment period. We had an 87% increase in a favorable opinion on CMS pursuing this. The societies, AAO, ASCRS, and ASRS requested that we submit some additional data. So we are currently working with the societies to provide that data, specific data on some metrics, some points that are going to further illustrate the safety and outcomes of the procedures that are being done, as well as they want to see a systematized rollout of a national accreditation program, which we have partnered with the Joint Commission and with Quad ASF to put together that program and present it to CMS and AAO. We hope to have a re-proposal into CMS next year. Little early to say if we're going to be able to do that or not, if we'll have the data prepared, but we're working towards it. So we believe that, from our viewpoint, it's probably inevitable, but there is a little bit of work to be done before I think the CMS will consider a nationwide rollout.
Makes sense. What does the final rule mean for the current state of OBS reimbursements?
So what we've asked for is that essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to gather further reimbursement to offset the expenses that the physician acquires by bringing the procedure into his office. As you know, there's a lot of expense of buying capital equipment, paying additional staff members, paying for the implant, the supplies, etc. So we have asked CMS to value the what's called the PERVU, which is the practice expense RVU. The physician is reimbursed in 3 parts in his professional fee. You have the work RVU, the malpractice RVU, and the practice expense RVU. Those three combined make up the professional fee. And we've asked CMS to put an additional value on the practice expense RVU to reimburse the physician for those incurred expenses. The definition of office-based surgery is anywhere a physician does surgery outside of another licensed facility, such as an ASC or a hospital. ASCs and hospitals, they receive facility fees for the cases that we do. What we're asking is for an enhanced professional fee, which simply means that we're assigning additional value onto the practice expense RVU.
Makes sense. As CMS continues to evaluate OBS for reimbursements, what's next for this movement?
Well, I think that right now we've got just under 100 office-based facilities in the United States and Puerto Rico that are doing surgery, that are currently operating right now or under development. We are going to utilize the data out of those facilities to provide the information to CMS and the societies that require. We are hoping to expand our retina programs, our glaucoma programs, and our oculoplastics programs. So we can make it. We want to make this every bit as a standard as the ASC is right now for all ophthalmic surgery. We found some very interesting things through this journey. We typically don't use IV sedation when we're doing surgery. This isn't something that is an initiative of IOR Partners. This is something that naturally came to the doctors as they were performing this procedure in this site. They simply elect to utilize oral medications, and in some cases, no medications, just intracameral lidocaine and topical anesthesia. And that's something that we didn't intend to do, but that came along because of this different side of service. And so we expect that the progression of the development of office-based surgery will uncover other things of that nature and simply make the experience better and more efficient for the patient.
Absolutely. I know you have been working with ophthalmologists for quite a few years. So do you mind if I ask you some general questions about the profession and what are some of the lessons you have learned, etc., if that's okay with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you have been in this space for decades now. So if you look at your successful doctors you work with, what are some of the characteristics of those practices or doctors that you notice kind of differentiate them from, let's say, the pack? I'm talking about the top 5% doctors.
Yeah, I would say characteristics of really successful physicians that I'm aware of is, I think first and foremost, is connection with their patients. Time and time again, and especially as we see, ophthalmology is one of the only specialties that allows to upgrade their patient services. Of course, everybody is aware that you can deliver an implant, an upgraded implant, and the patient can be charged for the additional cost in that. And I think that what you tend to see with practices that are really successful in that is that they have a relationship with their patients that exposes complete confidence in what they're doing. And I think the patients see that. I think they respond to it very well. The patients are coming to the physician as the expert, and they want to hear what the expert thinks. And I think that a physician that can deliver that in a very effective manner, in a manner with compassion and integrity, I think those are the ones that do well under any circumstance. I think the physicians need to be flexible. I think that a lot of guys, they go into training, they learn what they learn, which is served them very well and very effective at the time. And I think that new things happen, and I think they have to adapt and overcome and start moving towards the newer modalities.
Right. What do you think are the challenges that doctors face in 2023?
I think that we have a couple big ones coming. As everybody knows, there's a very large physician fee cut that has been slotted to come, and I think that diversification of revenue streams is always going to be important. I think that it's important now than it has been in the past. And that in combination with, depending on whose forecasted numbers you look at, there's a lot of patients coming down the road. I don't think that patient census is going to be an issue moving forward. I think, as a matter of fact, that physicians are going to have more patients than they know what to do with. I think they're going to have to be able to figure out how to treat those patients efficiently. I think they're going to have to be able to do it cost effectively, and I think they're going to have to maximize their reimbursement per patient.
Right. And you talked about diversification of revenue streams. So you are talking about fee for service versus reimbursed patients, kind of doing more of the fee for service type work.
Yeah, I think that has several different avenues, right? I mean, IOR, putting an IOR in your office is a great example of that. I'm not saying that because I represent that company. I'm saying that what the physician is doing when he does that is he's capturing the entire revenue stream. So the three modalities of a surgical patient are the professional fee, the facility fee, and the anesthesia fee. And in an IOR, the physician grabs all of those. When you do that, it also gives you a better basis, or at least seems to give you a better basis to upgrade that patient to a multifocal or some kind of upgraded modality, whether it's femto, a toric lens, whatever that is. And it gives the physician a greater sense of control on how he can treat his patients. That confidence then relays over into articulating that to the patient, which allows that to happen. With the amount of patients that are coming, there's only so much money in the budget. And moving forward, I think that people would do very well to recognize the fact that the future means that the patient is going to have to pay for some of the procedure, and the insurance company is going to have to pay for some of the procedure. And the guys that can implement that into their model sooner than later are going to be better off.
Makes sense. Let's say you're talking to a young doctor who's just opened up his practice. What would you tell him based on your years of experience?
I would tell him that to quickly implement as much as he can in the diversification of his practice. I think that I wouldn't limit myself to one particular specialty. If you're going to be doing general ophthalmology, I would definitely consider refractive surgery to be part of that. Refractive cataract surgery is the name of the game. I would educate myself in the ways of business. There are great programs out there, your program, there's other kinds of programs out there that can educate that physician on the means and uses of economic resources. And I think that they need to do that. If they can't do that, or they have no interest in doing that, then they need to surround themselves with people that do have that knowledge. I think that there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity for any ophthalmologist who's coming out. I actually think there's probably more opportunity now than there has been for some decades, because the patient volume that's coming is just astronomical. I mean, the numbers that are out there are, 200-300% of current volumes in the next decade. With that kind of volume, that brings a huge amount of opportunity. And I think that guys need to be educated on how to implement part of that.
Thank you so much. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, please share it with your friends on social media. Also, please don't forget to write a review on iTunes or Google Play. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners find us. Till we meet again, wishing all of you an amazing week ahead.